for the season. It's also a time to reflect, to look back, and to think about all that God has done in the year past, and to anticipate the goodness of God. And I'm thinking about many of you that are like, okay, I can't wait till 2020 is over. It's been the toughest year of my life. Others of you have found it to be restful, that you've slowed down from the pace of life, and you're grateful for that. Well, wherever you are at the end of 2020, Jesus is there with you. He's walking with you, and this season where we as a people of God have been pruned like never before, it really is this opportunity for grateful and greater fruitfulness than we've ever seen. You know, I've been thinking about a particular psalm, and it's Psalm 126. And it's the psalm that was written really after all of Jerusalem and the people of God had been carried off into Babylonian captivity. You know, they never thought that the city of Jerusalem would fall because it was up on the mountains. But when they were humiliated, and the kings and the princes and the nobles of the land were literally carried by chains to Babylon, and there they were for 70 years seeking the peace of the city. And you'll remember Jeremiah wrote to them that remember that God has a future and a hope for you. Jeremiah 29:11. We often think of that, and it was written in the midst of captivity. Well, at the end of 70 years, when a group of them were traveling back to Jerusalem, this psalm was written. And I want to read it to you, Psalm 126. I'm going to read it to you from the Passion Translation. It was like a dream come true. When you freed us from our bondage and brought us back to Zion, we laughed and overflowed with gladness. We were left shouting for joy and singing your praise. All the nations saw it and joined in, saying, "The Lord has done great miracles for them." Yes, he did great miracles, and we are overjoyed. Now, Lord, do it again. Restore us to our former glory. May streams of your refreshing flow over us until our dry hearts are drenched again. Those who sow their tears as seeds, will reap a harvest with joyful shouts of glee. You know, the verse I want to concentrate on is, now, Lord, do it again. Restore us to our former glory. May streams of refreshing flow over us until our dry hearts are drenched again. Doesn't that verse resonate with you? Isn't there part of your life that you have these moments of just great joy, and they become monuments to God, just of his goodness? But then there are times in our lives that we look back to these places of great fruitfulness, and we're like, God, we're in a pruned state. Do it again, God. Isn't it something that Jesus has designed us, that we're always dependent upon him for refreshing? That we can't really, in our own human energy or human effort, and certainly not from striving, we can't recreate high points in our lives. It's really a day-by-day journey. But there is a cry in our hearts of that restoration, that we would be totally restored. You know, I know that times that I have given much, and I literally, when it talks about those that sow in tears will reap in joy. There's so many areas of life that we sow in tears. We're interceding. We're believing God for our prodigal son to come home. We're believing for our marriage to be restored to another place. Maybe we're fighting with sickness and we want to be healed. And it's those times where we know the goodness of God. We've experienced the miracles. We've experienced the laughter. And then something rises up within us and we say, now do it again. Do it again. Soak us with your presence, oh God. Soak us. God, do a miracle again. We know you can. We've been sowing in tears, God. We're ready to reap in joy. And I love how this psalm ends. Let me just read you the last verse. They may weep as they go out carrying their seed to sow, but they will return with joyful laughter and shouting with gladness as they bring back armloads of blessing and harvest overflow. We need to end this year and move into the next year with expectation. And for some of us, it means we've got to shake off that fear of disappointment or pain or loss. Last year, I've never heard of more people being more expectant about a year, 2020. There was a buzz of excitement. And as we come to the end of this year, I want to remind you that those things that you were promised, you may just be waiting for a time of fulfillment. It may not be that God said something and then just took it back. Much more likely, those promises that are truly from heaven, those promises that you may have heard at the end of last year going into this next year, just know he's faithful to his promise. He's a God of restoration. He's a God of joy and victory. And don't let the things that you may have experienced that were negative or toxic or frightening, don't let that hold back your hope. As we go into 2021 and as we go into our Christmas season, let's go in with faith, expectation, but let's not anchor it on any one thing. Let's anchor it on a person of Jesus Christ, the one that never fails. He's the one that sowed his own body. He died on the cross for us, and it's his flesh and his blood that every time we take communion and we remember what he has done, it's an eternal promise of our future. But it's also remember that when we walk with him and talk with him and pray on a daily basis, we can experience the joy of Jesus' presence, even if our life on earth doesn't seem like it's holding up. I want that. I want to be drenched in his presence. I want to experience his presence, and I want my internal world to be the most joyful place. That internally I feel that peace, that joy. I know that's my inheritance. And sometimes it's a struggle to get to that place of quietness and restfulness and joy inside of our minds, our spirits, our hearts. As I close today, I just want to mention a documentary that I watched last night on Netflix. And it was about Princess Diana. And it was in her own voice, talking about how difficult those first years when she was a 19-year-old girl and got married to the Prince of Wales. On the outside, you see this fairy tale, this storybook wedding of a beautiful, beautiful woman raised up and elevated to become a princess, and just all that grandeur and wealth and prestige. And you see these crowds around the world just welcoming her. But she describes this internal unrest, this lack of joy, her hurt with the unfaithfulness of her husband. All of those different things are described in great detail in her voice. And I remember thinking at the end of it, and I woke up thinking about it today too. Lord, I don't want the external look of joy. I don't want it to just look perfect on the outside. Lord, I would rather have that internal peace, joy, resolute, knowing that of the purposefulness of life in my existence, and that contentment of walking with Jesus. Wouldn't you like that? That peace, that joy, that desire. Well, it starts by spending more time with Jesus, by being with him in worship. And sometimes it's difficult to have that internal joy because we've got to work through pain, loss, suffering. And if you're struggling with that, I want to remind you, and I think I'm going to put a link beneath this. You may need to have a safe conversation, and I'm not going to refer you to myself. I'm going to refer you to someone else that I know, that part of what their ministry is they build safe conversations. That if you've been feeling like, wow, I just need a one-on-one time to talk about what I'm going through, I'm going to put a link for a safe time conversation. Just find it in the notes below. Or it may be that you just need to, contact a good friend and go hang out with them and say, or Zoom or FaceTime or whatever, hey, I've been going through this and I can't seem to carry it alone. It's a burden. Galatians talks about that we carry one another's burdens out of reverence for Christ. Sometimes we need to talk to other people and unburden ourselves. And we can do that. But I want you to know the joy of Jesus is something that no one can take away from you. No event in history can take it away. Nothing can take it away. So that's what I pray for you. That internal peace, joy, calm, satisfaction, confidence, restfulness, and joy in the presence of Jesus. Even as you go into this bridge of a time between last year and next. I wish you just the best in your Christmas season, but even more than that, I pray that you would discover